Thank you, and welcome to the Pando Days finale. Before we begin, and at a time in history where we as a country are becoming more and more aware of past injustices, we want to echo the first page of the Our County Sustainability Plan for Los Angeles, which inspired Pando Days. It reads, "We recognize and acknowledge the first people of this ancestral and unceded territory. With respect to their elders, past and present, we recognize the Thonga, Tataviam, Chumash, and Kizh peoples who are still here, and we are committed to lifting up their stories and culture. We're thankful for the opportunity to be on this land." And thank you all for joining us today. My name is Eugene Shirley, and I'm the president of Pando Populous, an environmental and social impact accelerator based in Los Angeles County. Pando Days is a very special initiative, bringing together 10 colleges and universities from around the Southland to create ingenious initiatives to implement the Our County Sustainability Plan of Los Angeles. The Sustainability Plan is ambitious, encompassing a broad range of social and environmental goals, all interconnected and essential if we are to remake this region as one of a just and sustainable home. Of course, it's not often that so much public attention gets focused on a plan at the county or any other level. But the Our County Plan for a Sustainable LA is different. It touches nearly every aspect of our lives, from how we might be enriched to what we must do if we're to survive. The plan is inclusive. It assumes a broad definition of we to include our birds and trees, inhabitants of our mountains, waterways, and ocean, the millions of people who live here. It extends the idea of community to include communities of communities of communities of communities up and down and across all levels of life. The county's plan is impressive for its breadth and diversity, and I think you'll be equally impressed by the innovation and creativity that Pando Days colleges and universities have developed for implementing its goals. Beginning in the fall of last year, students and professors from 10 higher educational institutions, along with some of the most creative people in the region, came together to brainstorm unique solutions to the mounting problems we face. Their efforts to create actionable projects out of their brainstorming and academic work, projects which you've seen over the last month and a half of premier presentations, bring new ideas to life with plans and prototypes for making Los Angeles, our home, a model of resilience. Today marks the culminating day of a whole string of Pando Days events tracing back to October of last year, capped in this finale by the presentation of awards to the 4 projects that the judges have chosen. While today marks the end of the first Pando Days initiative, it's certainly not the end of our mission, because during the process, we've developed effective strategies to launch this kind of creative work across many fields, and we aim to keep at it. We're proud to be part of the process, to be germinating work to reach the goals of the sustainability plan as fast as possible, and to help trigger a chain reaction of hope through action at a time when hope is in short supply. I have to say that we've been blown away by what the 10 Pando Days colleges and universities have created and pulled off under lockdown conditions, and I'm excited to see which projects have captured the imaginations of the judges. But first, I'm honored to introduce to you the person who stirred my own passion in all these things 40 years ago when he was my professor at Claremont Graduate University and is Pando's founding chair, John B. Cobb Jr. It was in 1970 that John wrote a book on environmental matters called Is It Too Late? And he's been writing on these things and other issues of great intellectual importance ever since. John, thank you so much for laying both the philosophical and practical foundations that have made Pando Days possible, and I'd love for you to say a few words.
Thank you, Eugene. I appreciate this chance to express my ongoing excitement about what Pando Days has been and will continue to be. That excitement is closely tied to my admiration for those who have envisioned this approach and those who have implemented it. I am proud of Pando's role, and that means first and foremost, the vision and leadership of Eugene Shirley, along with the organization of Chief Sustainability Officers, which he has also brought into being. He envisioned a way in which the enormous resources present in our great colleges and universities could be made helpful to Los Angeles County as it seeks to implement the admirable goals it has set for itself. We live in a world on the brink of disasters that will make the current challenges seem minor. We have largely wasted 50 years since we first learned that our modern society is unsustainable. But now, at the level of state, county, and municipal governments, the need for positive action is being recognized. The right goals are being affirmed. I believe that Los Angeles County is genuinely committed. But between transformative goals and their implementation lies the huge need for new thinking. Where in the county are the needed information, creative imagination, research ability, and capable individuals who can undergird the county's efforts? The obvious answer is mainly in its institutions of higher education. Sadly, these too often regard being academic as being detached from the current needs of the world. Happily, this bias against relevance is breaking down. 10 institutions of higher education have found ways of contributing brilliantly to the achievement of the goals of Los Angeles County. This is reason for hope in a time when realistic assessment of what is all too likely to happen to humanity is deeply discouraging. The presence of hope in itself provides a reason to be hopeful. Let us celebrate this accomplishment. 10 universities in this county have found ways to connect their special capabilities and resources to serious efforts to foster a livable planet and a flourishing society. Those of you who represent those universities have achieved a breakthrough that has enormous positive potential. It is my hope that universities will now quickly realize that their reluctance to help save humanity from self-destruction should be transformed into enthusiasm for actualizing their vast potential. You should be very proud to have been the pioneers of a change that is urgently needed by universities themselves to deal with their own crises. But even more serious is the need of governments and of society as a whole for the help that universities can give. You and all those whom you represent have my thanks, Pando's thanks, and the county's thanks. If we all move forward to build wisely on what we have begun, you will have the thanks of the state, the nation, and the world as well. Back to you, Eugene.
Thank you so much, John. Appreciate all those words. When Pando Days was conceived, I don't think any of us could have imagined where this would lead. Each of the schools exceeded expectations. We're honored with the extraordinary contributions they've made. We have commissioned a special certificate that we'll be sending to each of the teams to celebrate and commemorate their work. The participating Pando Days schools and projects are as follows. Pasadena City College Visual Arts and Media Studies, 3D animation, for Resilience Project, a virtual landscape for resilience learning. Woodbury University School of Architecture, in association with Hinterland Institute, for saltwater gardens, innovations for the twin threats of underground saltwater incursion and food scarcity. SciArc for AI, Future of Housing, employing artificial intelligence to map affordable housing opportunities and match construction resources. LA Trade Tech Architecture, in association with the Puede Center, for repurposing land, transforming back alley wasteland into community space. UCLA School of Arts and Architecture Design Media Arts, in association with Counterforce Lab, for Biophilia Treehouse, linking birds and people at the tree level. Cal State Long Beach Immersive Design Research Lab, for We Are the Sea, engaging families and neighborhoods with local waterways. USC Iovine and Young Academy for Arts, Technology, and the Business of Innovation, in association with Very Nice, for CarSick, getting us on track for life without cars. Cal Poly Pomona, Huntley College of Agriculture, and the Lyle Center for Regenerative Studies, for Food Within Reach, foodways every quarter mile across the county. Otis College of Art and Design, Creative Action, for Green Map and Go, map and engage green resources. Caltech Sustainability, for Innovation Engine, identify strategic sustainability needs, foster collaboration, and predict impact. Our 4 Pando Days judges have the unenviable job of making their selections from among these 10 submissions. Judges have reviewed presentation materials for each of the projects and listened to the pitches in Premiere presentation recordings. To honor the winning Pando Days initiatives, the artist Tucker Nichols designed this trophy for us, which 4 teams will receive. He titled the piece, Save the World from Total Destruction. And the winners of the Pando Days Save the World from Total Destruction trophies are Pasadena City College, SciArc, Cal Poly Pomona, and Caltech Sustainability. Congratulations to you all. Now let's hear from the judges and learn about the decisions they made. Judges will describe their top 4 choices and will then be joined for a short conversation with the team lead from each of the winning schools. First up is Kathy Schlein, entrepreneur and early stage investor who was on the original Macintosh team for Apple. She served as a judge for Pando's Junk Battle a few years back. Kathy, it's wonderful to see you again. The Pasadena City College team, represented by Professor Sylvia Rigon, is with us today, and so just loop Sylvia into the conversation whenever you want. Over to you, Kathy.
Okay, thank you so much. First of all, congratulations to everyone, because the level of detail was mind-boggling, and working through Zoom and presenting remotely is challenging beyond words. So what I saw from everyone was extremely high quality, and definitely during very challenging times, to be able to gather all the materials and to work with each other. So my choices, Eugene, is you want me to start in order? Okay, so I'm going to start with my fourth choice, and I say they're all fantastic. And I am going to make one caveat. I do look at the presentations and the orientations, not necessarily solely based on the school and the department within the school, which is one way to look at it and how to bring out the best in all of you, but very much through the lens of how you're going to finance and execute on the concept that has been researched. So I look at it very much from an angel investor as well as from a venture perspective. So that is my personal lens. So bear with me on that, but I think the feasibility of the concept and bringing it to fruition is essential, and I know that's at the forefront of all your minds. So my number 4 choice was UCLA's Biophilia Treehouse. And I thought it was mind-boggling because, one, I learned a tremendous amount. So the product description was incredibly in-depth. So hats off to all of you. I had no idea that LA was the birdiest county in the United States, and that you know, birds are indicators of overall health in the ecosystem. So there was a lot of data points for me to absorb there. And you obviously did a tremendous amount of research on the fact that taking time out to actually observe the birds that regulate or indicators of our ecosystem, health of our ecosystem, and a time of COVID where taking a pause and absorbing nature is essential. So I love the concept. The presentation materials, as I said, were terrific, data rich, a lot of heart and soul. And I love the fact that the presentation was short and sweet, which is always essential. You never want to overtalk, but you also don't want to underspeak. So I love the fact also you wove in multiple different people. So it was a team approach. That I always hold in high regard. I'm a science freak, so the video was fantastic. On the project deliverables, very executable. So I think you guys did a phenomenal job on, one, I think this is something that everyone can understand. 2, that it's very financeable. And I think you articulated succinctly what needs to be executable. So the presentation overall was just solid. My only question to you that what's not addressed is it's always important when you're doing a presentation to talk about any concerns you might have as a group or risk factors. In this case, how durable are these tree houses, vandalism and whatnot, especially in an urban environment. Anyway, I thought it was fantastic and very excited to see that come into fruition. Moving right along. Eugene, am I going in an okay pace? Okay, so my number 3 was Otis College of Arts and Design with the Green Map and Go app. I'm a software developer by training in the past, so I love the cleanliness and the detail of the app. It was the user interface was extremely easy to follow. I thought your presentation materials were clean and simple, and you stated the problem succinctly, and you came up with a clear solution to the problem. I think aligning individuals, multiple different audiences, especially in an aging population, with a reward system on a smartphone is extremely smart, and tying in, there's a lot of really interesting software out there, tying in local community businesses. So I can see you adding a lot of value to existing software that exists, as well as to the bricks and mortar businesses out there. And there would not be one local government that would not think this was a fantastic idea. Very executable and very fundable. So hats off to you. In my number 3 with Green Map and Go. Number 2, I loved Cal Poly Pomona's Food Within Reach. I mean, once again, I learned a tremendous amount from the presentation. The artwork was fantastic, relevant, little bit of hippieism. I love that. There was some funk to it, but a sense of reality and to the entire presentation, especially some of the terminology, which I personally had not heard of. The concept of foodways and interconnecting cultural and social economic practices was really fascinating. Another term that really resonated with me was hyperlocal food network. And for sure, you need to highlight, and you do a very good job, but I think it could be brought to the forefront as you amplify the project, is the mission statement really needs to read, we plan to solve the capital and cultural gap between eaters, seaters, and feeders. I thought that was an amazing tagline and something that would resonate with all segments of society. So once again, I think this is a very fundable project that can be taken to communities throughout the United States, and starting locally is the way to go. It was extremely comprehensive, clean, simple to follow, and obviously solving hunger in a world where we have, 37 million people hungry every day. So I love this. It wasn't clear to me on the project deliverables, which I think is something to work a bit on, is to have a more delineated milestone schedule. And so I wasn't sure on the plan of action. I saw the toolkit was very good for communities from a self-assessment plan, but I would love to see a little bit more of a tighter milestone schedule for being able to do more of a rollout as you see this extending. It appears that this project is farther along than some of the other ones, so, but I wasn't quite sure about all of this. Anyway, the website up and running. All in all, you did a fantastic job. It reads well. It's easy to get your hands around, and God knows we need it in our world today. And my number one choice was the Pasadena City College, the Resilience Project. And I think, the timing is everything in life, especially when you're starting any kind of business or you want to add value to any societal major issue. The product description is a little tough to follow. It's the disaster preparedness kind of straddles between reality and an ethereal nature, especially when you start talking about the virtual reality meditation. I got lost a bit there, where the gamification of knowing at multiple different target audiences how to be best prepared, whether it's a fire, an earthquake, COVID-19, whatever the scenario might be, there's tremendous opportunity. So I voted all of you as number one because I bet on the potential. So I was looking at the tremendous potential on execution from a software point of view, and adding value. And most important, through my lens, it's very scalable. So when I think about the scalability of the project and the software, this is something that can be rolled out easily throughout the United States when the software was perfected, and level of detail on exactly what problem you wanted to solve. Because resilience, as you well articulate, because I think the presentation is very good. The poem lost me, as well written as it was. I wasn't sure what its value add to the overall mission was, but hats off to you, because you're onto something. And I think it's very, very exciting. Eugene?
Yes, Kathy, Sylvia is on, who's the project lead. Do you have any questions for Sylvia?
Well, Sylvia, the question that I have, that I think I was perplexed with, is you went in a couple different tangents in the presentation. The video is excellent. You guys did a fantastic job, and I think the way it was set up, you couldn't get to the point of the project that you wanted to, based on COVID hit and everyone disseminated, and it was hard to bring the group together. But the challenge that I think you have, and I'd like to talk to you and hear from you, is the software side of the project is great. And I don't know what part of that and the gamification of disaster preparedness dominates this sense of how you're going to handle the mental aftermath of creating a resilient human being within the community. So there was almost like two parallel issues going on. And I'd love to hear about how you're going to solve both, or do you have a priority on how you're going to solve them?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, first of all, to you, to the judges. I'm very excited for me and my team, especially for my students who put their heart out for this project. And thank you for the question. It's a very relevant question. We wanted to keep it very open as a very conceptual phase of the project and test out different possibilities. In our mind as a group, we wanted to have a very pragmatical outcome, which was this gamification of disaster preparedness. And we felt that that will bring something really tangible and measurable and probably very useful to the community. The other one was more open-ended, and it was maybe more, I would say, a pedagogical tool for talking about resilience on a more personal level and in a more expressive level. So that's the other part is more a moment of reflection. Because as we wrote in our presentation, the word resilience means a lot of things, but in the way that we interpret it is shifting mindset from the individual to the collective, and short-term to long-term, and from the singular to the plural. So we wanted to see if it was potential for this platform to also explore the shift of perspective, mindset, of consciousness. But I think as it will evolve and as we have the chance to test it and to implement it, as we scale it up, we also will have more the chance to get feedback on the project and maybe pivot based on that.
It's challenging to do both, right? I mean, just tackling what the video is really addressing the can you create a gamification with a very strong level of seriousness on some of the major issues facing the LA County and perhaps the world, makes it very scalable, very approachable. On the mental wellness side of resilience, which I think you also tried to straddle, almost confuses the story. And I think you'll have, there's a bifurcation of which sort of kind of overlaps, but not really. And it'd be interesting as you move forward, how you'll separate that. And that might be in a completely different piece of software. And not try to throw everything. One of the biggest mistakes, definitely with software development, is throwing too many features and functionalities at the end user, and there's tremendous compromise. So my recommendation would be avoid that. Be very straightforward, simple, solve the problem in one, I'd pick probably the disaster preparedness and maybe the, secondary, the mental aftermath or the mental wellness around how do you develop resilience in a changing world that's incredibly disruptive. But hats off, it's very exciting, tremendous potential. You guys have a lot of work to do, but it's very exciting.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for the feedback. I really appreciate it.
Eugene?
Hey, thank you so much, Kathy, and congratulations again to Sylvia and her team and Pasadena City College. Now let's hear from Mark Eckhart, the CEO of Common, a creative accelerator focusing on the launch and growth of businesses. Having at one point been a professional drummer, he became a Zen priest. He's a longtime Pandomaniac. Mark Ben Fried, who represents the Caltech Sustainability Project, is with us today on this call. And so please bring him into the conversation whenever you wish. All yours.
Thanks, Eugene. And thank you for having me. And I want to extend that to Dr. Cobb and to everyone who's made Pando Days possible. This is incredibly awesome. And certainly congratulations to all of the teams. I have to admit, I found the process of judging to be incredibly difficult. And at the 11th hour, I even went as far as writing all the names of the teams down, and I was about to send an email to Eugene saying I select everyone, but I just didn't want to screw up the process. So I did narrow it down to 4, and the truth is that each and every one of them is scalable and fundable. So given that I work in the world of business and I think that there's incredible potential for each of the 4 that I selected, I chose to shift and use another lens for my assessment and evaluation. And it literally brought me back to just the question, what is the purpose of this exercise, meaning Pando Days? What's the purpose of the county sustainability plan beyond ensuring that the county and our community doesn't collapse and thrives, et cetera, et cetera. I also ask, what if the county met its goals, and what would that render? And for me, as I pulled back the layers, where I arrived was simply that if we were to fulfill on our aspirations, we will have demonstrated successfully empathy at scale. So that was the lens through which I looked at all of the projects that I selected. And I continued to kind of lean into the initial questions, such as if, we've successfully shifted our awareness and concern from ourselves and our immediate surroundings to an embrace of the whole, what do we need to address? And that brought me to generator functions, which in my world and my work are the fundamental things, or the four things that have led us to where we are today as a civilization. So there's destruction of the biosphere, there's the effect of exponential tech, there's rivalrous dynamics, and then there's the war on sense making. And so again, that was my lens. And so with that as my lens, I actually want to address all four teams as a group, because together I see you working or delivering on both the practical side of sustainability and our sustainability needs throughout the county, and also the aspirational things that we are reaching and moving towards and working to create in terms of civilization. So I'll begin with SciArc. You're my fourth selection, so AI Future of Housing. Through those generator functions or lenses, what came up for me first and foremost was harmony through tech. And harmony is an issue throughout the country. I really appreciated just the use of the land and thinking about land and where we might be able to find opportunities to do things that we haven't, and to cut through all of the noise about what isn't possible. So much of what I hear about when it comes to housing really lands in the realm of what's not possible, or why we can't do this or we can't do that. And I felt that you really did an effective job of just really laying out a whole nother approach to illuminating what we can do, far, far beyond what we're seeing today in real time. I also love the fact that you illuminated through your presentations just a way to kind of ladder up into the cost and the impact, and again, illuminate things that people aren't normally able to see outside of academia or outside of working within the government. And thinking about, the everyday business person or business owner, or somebody who's moving into the LA County who wants to own property in the future, and how do we do that? And I could go on and on and on, but I just found what you did to be comprehensive. It inspired me. It really pushed me up against those four generator functions. And I think that what you have laid out really fulfills against that criteria. Could we reduce effects or destruction of biosphere through what you've done? Yes. You're using exponential tech for good. Awesome. We're reducing rivalrous dynamics by making it possible for more people to have access to housing and to do so in a sustainable way. And we're actually making it clear in terms of the way that we're able to do that, and to do that efficiently and effectively. So good job. Cal Poly Pomona, my alma mater, so food within reach. What came up first and foremost was harmony, the use of language, through just the honoring of the ancestors who originally were on the land. Of course, you address thoroughly destruction of biosphere through practices, food creation, food production. You introduced a number of very interesting terms, which Kathy pointed out. I loved how you used the context of ancestors to really address rivalrous dynamics. So land has been so commoditized over the years, but now you're twisting that, you're flipping that, you use the land to build dynamics and dynamic communities, and you're using it to reduce the tendency for us to want to grab land and roll it up and own it. And sense making, so equity comes to mind. Health and food, unity and division comes to mind, and what's sustainable and what's not. And all of that kind of rolls up into resilience. And I have to say that this particular project in particular really stood out in the context of a pandemic, in the largest civil rights protests that we've ever experienced in the world. And I know that what you've done here in terms of food and what you're laying out, what you're proposing, is something that could go a very long way to reducing the dynamics that have led us to where we are in terms of those two dynamics. So moving on to my third selection. So Pasadena City College Resilience Project. So this is scalable tech for good, and it's done so in a way that reduces negative impact. It addresses sense making by providing people with an experience of potential future scenarios. And I think that's essential to overcoming political and philosophical differences when it comes to what are we going to do, what's going to be next, what plan are we going to go forward. So experience to me is key. And in fact, I'll share a very quick story. I'm doing a lot of work right now with Rebecca Henderson, who is a professor at Harvard. She's a professor of sustainability and business. And she's also the author of Reimagining Capitalism in a World on Fire. And in thinking about how we can take her theory of change farther out into the world, I suggested to her, or I posed the question, what does an astronaut and a fighter pilot have in common? And it's simulator. And so I think that using simulation is really, really key. I think it is one of the essential things that's going to provide us the kind of thrust that we need to get out in front of the problems, or at least catch up to the problems to whatever degree that's possible that we're facing today. I love the fact that what you're proposing and what you've put on the table is going to be open source. And so that again is going to reduce rivalrous dynamics. And just imagine, the majority of the county being trained and confident in its preparedness for emergencies and many other things that I see the platform and technology being able to do and cultivate. So congratulations to you. In terms of Caltech, sustainability, I really see what you've created as being the future. It especially addresses all four of the generator functions. Again, it's exponential tech for good. It definitely draws on sense making. It makes sense making easier. So in a very dynamic, very fast changing world, having a simulator that is as granular as the one that you guys have created was spectacular. I really believe that what you've created will reduce drag caused by rivalrous dynamics and competition and kind of holding on to IP and wanting to monetize and maximize the value of IP. And you're going to be doing that by identifying overlapping needs, pulling people out of silos. I think it really, really superbly just framed the proposition that through this technology and platform, we're going to be able to really make strong case and position people to share resources. Obviously, with this kind of strategic planning capability, we'll be able to reduce impact on the biosphere and climate, et cetera, and just using predictive analysis that would allow us to gauge the impact of our strategic planning and interactions will go a very long way to making sure that we are making the best choices, optimizing those choices, and also generating the feedback loops that are so necessary to know what to do next in succession. So that's it, Eugene.
Thanks, Mark. Ben is on. Do you have, who is the team lead for that? Do you have any question, maybe just one or so, that you'd like to ask Ben?
I do, absolutely. So Ben, I really enjoyed the dialogue that took place after your presentation. And one of the things that popped up was just the complexity and the language. I'm wondering, has there been any thought put towards how to solve that since those conversations took place?
Hi.
Hey, Ben.
Hi. Yeah, there's definitely been thought on that. Bringing in experts in the art of storytelling, I think, is something that's really important. Presenting, lessons sort of through parables in a way, I think is a really powerful way of expressing these ideas that aren't intuitive, within our culture in general, because, interconnected thinking is something that's not really, it's not really taught in our schools very much. Things are very heavily siloed. So transforming these more scientific and mathematical concepts into, you know, sort of just real life events that people can identify with, I think is something that's really important moving forward.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that. The next question I have is, like, where does your technology sit in the evolution of simulators and simulation? You know, I'm just coming into this on my own, but I'm very curious.
Yeah, so the main body of work that I'm inspired by is definitely at the cutting edge of simulation. It relative to the age of mature sciences, it's still a young science. If we put quantum mechanics into, you know, history, it's only about 100 years old.
Yeah.
So this sort of from the bottom up generative modeling and simulation really started. The nexus point was John Conway's Game of Life, if you've ever seen that, cellular automata, right? So that was in the 60s, and that was way before any application was thought of. So this realm of simulation is quite new, even in the academic sphere.
And what do you need to keep moving forward?
What I need to keep moving forward would be definitely a lab. Yeah. There's a lot of work ahead to do. It's a tremendous problem to tackle, the inner workings of a city. So a team of individuals who are dedicated to this work, a small team, but a dedicated team, and the support of municipalities, transparency and access to municipal data, so that we can accurately represent the city as it functions and exists in our models.
That's great. And I'm assuming that you probably thought at one point or another, as you've been working on this project, that this kind of platform can be made available outside of, you know, public works and government, but, you know, businesses and professionals can use it in a number of different industries and sectors and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. The idea is to present a software package, something that is capable of taking really complex ideas and putting it into an interface where you get those ideas represented to you through visualizations. The science/art of data visualization is an entire field within itself. So that's another idea that we'd want to incorporate. And then when it comes to the operation of these simulations, so using them as your own little personal laboratory, that's something that also I think could be very powerful and educational for the business community and for the public in general.
That's great. Thank you. I really believe that what you're building and the efforts of those who are building similar technology and capability really find this to be on the forefront of solving these big problems. And I'm really excited to see where you go from here. And again, I'll just underscore that through the lens of those 4 generator functions, I think that your ability to kind of deliver real solutions and generate progress through very clear, well thought out action is superbly high. So congratulations, and congratulations to all of the other projects that I selected. They too kind of meet that criteria as well. So high five.
Okay, thank you, Mark, and congratulations once again to you, Ben, and to Caltech Sustainability. Now let's hear from Andy Schrader, who's the Director of Environmental Affairs, Water Policy, and Sustainability for Los Angeles City Council member Paul Koretz of the 5th District. Andy's previous career was as a writer in the film industry, working for DreamWorks. In public service, he's in the middle of all things sustainable across Los Angeles. Andy Kathleen Blackistone, representing the Cal Poly Project, is with us today. So bring her into the conversation when you wish. Andy?
Thank you, Eugene. I also want to send a thank you to the visionary John Cobb, who launched this whole effort and who I want to be when I grow up, and to the whole Pando team for really moving these terrific Pando Days projects forward, keeping them on track through Zoom, through the most difficult of circumstances. I also want to give a shout out and underline what Eugene said earlier, that Pando Days was inspired by and with the intention to help implement the truly remarkable and country-leading LA countywide sustainability plan. LA County's Chief Sustainability Officer, Gary Giroux, and his team pulled together a diverse and effective working group that put together a plan to address not only sustainability in a county of 10 million people, but environmental justice. We cannot have one without the other. So if you haven't seen the full plan, it's such an achievement. I encourage you to check it out. Now onto the projects. I have to be brutally honest. Ranking these amazing projects was really tough for me. They were all so professionally accomplished. You put so much heart and soul into them. Every time I opened another presentation, I really felt your heart and your passion poured into each one. And I think they all can be helpful for addressing the most pressing issues of our time. But unfortunately, I had to choose. So the way that I did, the way I broke it down is from where I sit. And I'm a policymaker in the second largest city in the country, Los Angeles. And I had to look at what do I believe to be the most effective way to address these issues on the ground, issues which I've been working on for most of a decade. Which projects are most achievable, most fundable, most implementable, and really important at this point in history, scalable, which ones can be modeled and spread across the country quickly. And then which ones will be directly helpful to someone like me, who works on environmental policy in a big city or even a small town. So those are the projects I can help the most with because they're the most relevant to the work I'm currently doing. And then the other criterion that wouldn't let go of my head is what do we need right now? COVID thinking completely influenced my top thinking, my top choice. So in reverse order for dramatic unveiling, number 4, I chose Otis's Our Country Map and Go app. I think this would be really useful in my world. My only thought of improvement on this is I would love to see you make the app into maybe a competition to achieve sustainable actions. So people are actively competing to save the world and having fun while they're doing it. I have some ideas on how to do that, so let me know if you're interested in talking about that. Number 3, LA Trade Tech's repurposing land. This one feels completely shovel ready, just beautifully done. Is in the realm of current priorities within the city of Los Angeles and will be a terrific model to spread throughout the region. And I look forward to working with you on it. I'm excited about it. Number 2, the one we just heard from, Caltech Sustainability's Innovation Engine for Sustainable Development. I've always wondered why somebody hasn't already used artificial intelligence to address climate change, biodiversity loss, all these massive things that we're facing, to make the tough calls that human beings seem to be unable to make for this slow-moving disaster with an increasingly loud ticking time bomb deadline. And so this project I very much want at my fingertips right now. So Ben, I encourage you, get off Zoom right now and get to work. And then number 1, is there a Zoom drum roll button on here? There seemed to me to be some internal tension within the Pando Days competition between projects using cutting edge technology and projects using ancient wisdom. And I believe we need both going forward. But I also believe we need to begin with and let ancient wisdom guide our way. So I picked as my top choice Cal Poly Pomona's Food Within Reach. And the title says it all. Food Within Reach. My boss, LA City Council member Paul Koretz, and I have been working very hard for the past 3 years to create the world's first Office of Climate Emergency Mobilization. And we were able to fund it despite the COVID budget crunch, fortunately. And we should have the director hired by the end of August. And one of the first things we want to do is create and launch some kind of Victory Gardens initiative like they did back in World War II, which really got the whole country together on the same page. And you guys have already done that. This is better than anything that we were even considering. With foodways every quarter mile, you're solving for so many problems, especially now with so many people struggling under the weight of the COVID economic crunch, and especially given now that we know exactly how fragile our global food system truly is. It's vital for us to get regenerative agriculture and healthy soil built on every available square inch so we can actually achieve drawdown and start improving climate change. And so I see this effort as really helpful in that direction. And I do have a couple of questions. Eugene, do you need to introduce the team lead, or do we just go into it?
Kathleen is on, and so Andy, just go ahead and with a question or two. Sure.
So first of all, congratulations, Kathleen. This was a fantastic project. I really felt the deep, like I said, ancient wisdom at work, and it's really addressing so many issues that are at the forefront of everything that we're dealing with right now. I very much appreciate the community base building aspect, which we've also built into our climate office. But given COVID and physical distancing, I'm curious how you'll pull off that trust building and that level of trust building that you need to really be successful going forward.
Thank you, Andy, for your vote of confidence, and we appreciate your feedback. I was fortunate to work with colleagues Aaron Fox and Stephen Archambault, who are on this call with us today too. And we discussed amplifying the work that is already going on in the county. I think several folks have mentioned how siloed we are. And there is a urban agriculture center being built at Cal Poly that we see as really an intersection for harnessing a lot of both data and skill building. And we were fortunate to meet with Michael Whitmer, who I believe is also on the call. And we know there's a lot of groups in Pomona already working on this issue. And so it's using the network of people that we know to bring in the community, both in several languages, and just starting in Pomona, right? That was the goal of this project, was to prototype in Pomona and say what is happening, what can happen. The Institute of Public Strategies was there, and it turns out that they have an initiative for all of 2021 to go out and talk to the community. So we will potentially be able to ride into that framework that's already going on. So I think it's tapping into what municipalities already know they need to do and building trust with organizations that are already operational. We do not want to invent the wheel.
Yeah, for sure. I wonder if given that we're early in the process, if there's any like LA County health laws or state laws that need to be addressed as you move this forward. Oftentimes laws meant to protect the public in one way can impede efforts in other ways. So I'm wondering if you've run into anything like that so far.
we did talk about, there are some laws around, what you can make in home kitchens. There's highly restricted like dairy regulations. So a lot of communities have goats, but you're not able to legally, share or consume that food with others. So my guess is that there are folks who've spent time in the food safety space. I know we have an expert at Cal Poly, Rachel Searles, whose background is in that space, who I'm sure has more information than I do on that particular issue. I mean, that's obviously the beauty of working at the university, right, is that you have a very large pool of resources. That's our agriculture school here in Southern California. They've been going for a very long time.
Well, so I wanted to say, and I totally agree, since this is addressing part of the countywide sustainability plan, and this is for all participants and all the projects, if you run into stumbling blocks because of laws and things like that, and you're actively helping to address the countywide sustainability plan, I'm sure this very progressive LA County Board of Supervisors will help you overcome the obstacles. So I encourage you to engage with them in that way. And like I've mentioned, you've got a friend at City Hall too. It sounds like you've already connected with the LA Food Policy Council about this, and because that's a super connected group,
Right.
and it seems to be right in their wheelhouse.
Yeah, I'm on their urban ag working group.
Oh, perfect. Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
So as Mark mentioned, what specifically do you need to move forward, from the judge panel or from me, anything like that?
I think that our goal, we weren't sure what the sort of the winning would mean. I know we are hoping to have some resources to be able to bring the community in, that many of the folks that we want to serve do not have resources to access land. So having access to empty lots that the city owns, we're aware of the urban agricultural incentive zone that did not, was not enough of not a big enough stick to motivate very many people to come forward. So this idea of maybe urban agriculture conservation zones and really being able to assign this land, if not in perpetuity, for a decade, in order to put together a program that the community wants. We knew we didn't want to speak for the community, that it's up to each neighborhood to say. Sometimes it is going to be a garden, sometimes it's going to be a place where they want to convene and eat together. Right, so it has a flexibility, our model, so that it really can address what each community is wanting. And we particularly wanted to work in our poorest communities, where they're often overlooked in terms of the resources that we put into them. And so really looking at those pieces of land that might be available for reimagining, a placemaking exercise.
That sounds great. The one place I would encourage you to look, that we've kind of been looking at in the city of Los Angeles, is land beneath utility poles and power poles, and because the utility always has kind of extra land around their infrastructure, and so sometimes that can be a good solution. Anyway, congratulations. I look forward to your success in Pomona. I'm especially happy to help when you're ready to expand to your big brother city to the west. And I just also want to say, I want to offer my assistance to all the projects. It pained me to have to pick. So I'm happy to help, keeping in mind that I'm about connections, not about funding. But if you're seriously going to move yours forward, I will happily make introductions or pitches in the right places. Saltwater Gardens, for just one fine example, is ready right now, and I'm ready to get it in front of whomever you like, including LA City Sanitation Department, one of Torrance City Council members that I know. The Resilience Project was so good, it gave me PTSD flashbacks to being evacuated from my home 5 times from wildfires in the last few years. I'm happy to introduce you to LA City's Chief Resilience Officer. So anyway, thank you so much. Great work, everybody. And back to Eugene.
Thank you, Andy. And congratulations again to Kathleen and to the Cal Poly Pomona team. The final judge we'll hear from today is Peter Lawharn, President and CEO of the Conrad N. Hilton Foundation. Peter began his career at Save the Children and went on to have a distinguished career internationally as a foundation head and as the president of the Hilton Foundation. He has generously helped make Pando Days possible. Peter, Professor Mimi Zeiger is representing the SCI-ARC project. She's with us today, so feel free to bring her into the conversation whenever you wish. All yours.
Thanks, Eugene, and I think you just revealed my first choice. Let me start with, well, first, thanks to everyone, all good projects, all with real potential, and really kudos to Pando, to Eugene, and everyone else involved for conceiving of this effort. A really interesting structure and excellent results. I'll try to be brief, as I know we're getting to the end of our hour. So what I looked for, something that extends the county's sustainability plan, that has importance to key issues in LA County, not just environmental and sustainability, but also political, economic, and even moral, that has feasibility and practical use, and that has potential for financing and scale or replicability. My fourth choice, and I joined with all of the other judges on this, I think, was Cal Poly Pomona, the Food Waste Project. I think it's an important, inspiring idea. It's relevant to the county sustainability plan, especially to Goal 10, applicable across the county. Lots of good touches. I especially like the participatory aspect, where it stood out, I think. And the one thing I would say is I'm not entirely sure what the result will be, similar to Kathy's comment on deliverables. But like her, I was very enthusiastic about it. My number three, and here I joined with two other judges, was Otis College Green Map and Go. Found it practical. It builds on the ubiquity of the cell phone. I would use this app. And I think, importantly, it could extend and popularize the county plan and also put the county in touch with thousands of users. There's a caveat there. There needs to be a strong marketing plan. An app is a wonderful thing, but it's only amazing if it gets out in front of a lot of people. My number two was Woodbury University Saltwater Gardens, which Andy just mentioned. I think this is an important and little recognized problem. Interesting approach. I have to say, I grew up in this part of the county in the South Bay, and I did not know about this. I did not know about the whole wall of injection wells, and I didn't know about a problem of this magnitude that needs to be solved. I think this was a practical approach, the saltwater gardens, and I particularly like the idea of the reuse of malls and parking lots. I think it's brilliant and will be useful in many situations in the future. So my number one was SCI-ARC and the future of housing. One second here. I thought that it was, I'm just getting my notes, sorry. Very consequential. It's a practical approach to a key issue. It's sophisticated with lots of practical applications. And as I mentioned before, I think land use, and particularly in LA County, by that, housing and homelessness is the juncture of a lot of different ways of looking at things, a lot of different domains: environmental, technological, social, political, moral. And I have to say, in full disclosure, homelessness is an area where the Hilton Foundation does a lot of work. LA is the nation's capital of homelessness, and homelessness and housing affordability are, I think, preoccupations of all of us. And I think there really interesting potential in this model. I found what the group had developed is quite varied, from an owner and renter app to ideas about how to develop accessory dwelling units, co-housing for people with disabilities, a lot of stuff that I think has a really immediate applicability. I like the discussion after the presentation as well, because I think the team showed that they were aware of some of the challenges that are beyond AI itself. They're aware of the strengths and weaknesses of AI-dependent solutions, and they're aware of the non-tech challenges that this product has to get over. Andy mentioned a number of those. Permitting, for example, NIMBYism in the case of ADUs, or low-cost housing in neighborhoods. I think bringing down unit costs and shortening timelines are really key to LA getting in front of homelessness and quite likely all of its housing issues. And I see possibilities and potentials for both of those in what the team put together. There are a number of other innovation challenges and incubators working on these two issues of homelessness and housing that I think it would be interesting to get the project together with. And I think it would be very interesting to try to connect the county sustainability plan with the county and the city's homelessness and housing plans. And I would love to see a bit more in the team's work on costing and financing models. Because I think there are real potentials in what they put together, but it would be great to see them worked out. So Eugene, if I can just pose a question to Mimi, really about this, where AI as an analytical and design tool converges with the real world of policy and politics and markets. How do you see your product, your approach going out into the world and thriving, and what obstacles does it have to get over?
Thank you, Peter, and thank you to all of the Pando organizers, Eugene and Dr. Cobb. It's been a real pleasure to work on this project. I also want to introduce Casey Beam, who I co-taught this project with. And I think what we were really interested in looking at this is how do we take something that is so technologically advanced that, you know, it's, but yet so pervasive within our culture, and figure out languages in which to begin to sort of let it loose, right? And so I think one of the hurdles is also just thinking about AI, not only just as something that is, you know, sort of the, you know, that's going to just take over, but as a way that it shows who we are, it shows our own biases. It is really excellent at sort of sorting and, you know, sort of figuring out criteria. And I think as we make those components more transparent, then as we sort of take AI into the real world, it has, you know, very sort of real-time applications from everything from, you know, policy to websites to, you know, sort of helping people, you know, being a matching system between renters and landowners.
And just to take what Andy said a little further, policymakers and people who are dealing with these issues of housing affordability and of homelessness, how can you team up with them in a way that is really helpful to them, that, you know, kind of plug and play or thinking about their world?
Yeah, I mean, I think they deal with so many data points, and we are looking at spatial points in relationship to that. In fact, we are sort of scraping from, you know, sort of existing data, and I think visualizing that data in ways, beginning to sort of find the, if not loopholes, those sort of the areas that are underutilized within those kinds of layers of data, I think is a really smart way for us to be able to move forward. So the more we can kind of get to people, talk to people, be in conversation, you know, I think that will help the project. Casey, is there anything you want to add on that? No.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize I could unmute. I think that's good.
All right, thanks.
Yeah.
Great, and I would echo Andy's point about whatever intros I can make, I would be happy to, and you know, to talk further with your group. And then I would give you Mark's question as well. What do you need next?
I'm going to let Casey take this one because he knows exactly what we need.
Okay.
I mean, there's kind of two facets to the project that we need support for. One is in the kind of prototyping of the construction of these kind of prefabricated systems. We're building a new facility, which actually, if it weren't for the current situation, would actually be completed in the next month, to allow us to do some of the automated fabrication things that the groups were proposing. And then the other side would be in terms of the further development of the classification models that we're using, the analytical models. They all require huge data sets, which is labor intensive, but also is like resources that it would be great to work with the city, for example, or other entities that help us build those. Like each project had a very narrow kind of target area that they were working with in order to make sure that they could get a kind of just prototype or test out that their networks were working and making projections that seem reasonable. But to make something much more generalizable, it would take a kind of major effort and a major resources in terms of data assets.
Super. Thanks, Casey. Thanks, Mimi. Thanks the whole team. Great work. And all of you.
Thank you so much. We're really honored.
Back to you, Eugene.
Thank you so much, Peter. And congratulations again to the SciArc team. The kind of work that all 10 of the schools have done over these past few months for Pando Days demonstrates what's possible when institutions of higher education direct their extraordinary talents to meeting the most pressing needs of society and Earth. To further the kind of amazing work that we've seen develop around Pando Days, I'm delighted to announce this afternoon that Pando and the Maryknoll sisters in Monrovia are working in active partnership to develop their campus in the foothills of the San Gabriel Mountains for demonstration, education, and project acceleration related to the goals of the Our County Sustainability Plan, goals that the sisters described in terms of one Earth community. The Maryknoll campus just east of Pasadena was founded in 1930 to meet a critical LA County need at the time, in which an extraordinary demonstration of radical commitment on the part of the sisters was demanded. Now, 90 years later, while the needs of the Southland are different, the need for radical commitment among us all is no less. The mission focus of Pando at Maryknoll will offer an alternative campus to brainstorm, grow, and model the future that the Our County LA Plan envisions. So stay tuned for more. And now I'm pleased to introduce the person who heads the work for the county of strengthening the community resilience of us all, Gary Giroux. Gary is LA County's Chief Sustainability Officer and the principal author in that way of the Sustainability Plan. Gary helped us launch Pando Days in October of last year. Gary, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Eugene, so much for all your inspiring work and the entire Pando team. You guys, having had early conversations with you, probably going back now 2 years or more, about the idea of a Chief Sustainability Officers Network, and then seeing the Pando Days develop. It's been really inspiring. So thank you for your work, and really want to thank all of the judges for participating in this. I've judged these sorts of things before, and I heard many of you say how hard it was to pick winners. It is always hard to pick winners, but it's also just a lot of time and energy and brain power that goes into it, and you're not obviously being compensated for that. So thank you just for putting in the sweat equity to make something like these awards and these projects possible. So thank Kathy and Mark and Andy and Peter. And I have to say a special thanks really to Peter, because Peter was a very early, in fact, the very first grant that I got when I was newly named as the Chief Sustainability Officer, when we had just sort of conceptualized the sustainability plan in the barest of a framework. But he saw something there and believes in us, and has been a strong and consistent supporter. And without the without the initial funds that we got from Hilton, we would not have been able to do the kind of on the ground work with communities that we ultimately did, where we had nearly 1,000 people coming through and giving us their ideas, hiring 5 environmental justice organizations to do community organizing. So thank you, Peter, for that support and for the continuing support around community resilience. But, you know, I think, and I don't want to spend the whole time thanking, and I know we're over time, but I want to also say thank you to the students for putting in so much work. I went through the projects myself because I was interested, frankly, but also because I wanted to be familiar with what the plan had inspired and how it could be, how it could grow. And the work of the students and the professors, thank you, and thanks to the schools for engaging in this. All of the projects were really good. Congratulations to the winners, the Pasadena City College, to Caltech, to Cal Poly Pomona, and SciArc. All of those were really good and interesting projects. And I look forward to working with all of you to figure out ways to implement. But there were so many other great projects. You know, I loved, quite honestly, I loved LA Trade Tech's Alley project and the Woodbury saltwater project. And I really loved the imagery of taking, you know, a big box store and sort of seeing that become a forest. That was incredible. USC's Carsick game was a lot of fun. I want to play it at some point. And the UCLA bird trees, obviously you can see I'm here in the midst of my backyard, and there's birds all around, and it's great to have those birds. So, you know, of course, when we conceptualized the sustainability plan, we were serious about the 3 E's of sustainability. I think that comes through in the plan itself, but it comes through in these projects. And the 3 E's, of course, are the environment and the economy and equity. And we really centered equity. When you think about sustainability, frequently you think about just the environment or maybe its intersection with the other 2, but we really thought equity was critical. And that's why we hired environmental justice organizations. And that's why we didn't write a word of the plan until we had sat down with 1,000 people in workshops, getting community ideas as to what's important to them in their communities. So these kinds of projects are just so inspiring and educational. Nobody, and I, you know, I'm the chief sustainability officer, but we really are a team, and it's a team within the county, and it's a team, the county government, but it's a team within all of the municipalities and all of the community-based organizations and all of the academia, which Dr. Cobb's comments early on about academia and needing that connection. One of our contractors was UCLA, and we were doing great work today with USC and with other universities. So we really see the need for that academic to inform policymaking. But I guess the last thing I want to say is just that, you know, this is really affirming for me. When you're in an office or a position like mine, and you go through this 2-year-long effort to craft a plan, and you hope that it is as good as it possibly can be, and you get it out there, and the board of supervisors adopts it, you don't honestly know what's going to happen next, and you hope that smart people see it and pick it up and use it and help it, nurture it, and help it grow. And that's what all of these 10 projects are. They are the family that is helping the plan live and breathe and grow and thrive. So, and I don't always see that. I don't see how the plan is being picked up by others. So this has been really special for me. So thanks for including me. The last thing I want to say is just, and if I had it in front of me or had it with me, I would show there's a board resolution that'll be in fancy scroll with lots of nice graphics or calligraphy. But I want to just quote from it a little bit. Supervisor Kuehl is sponsoring that, and she wanted to make sure that I addressed what she wanted to say here today. So I'm going to just cite a couple of passages from it. And the first is that the Chief Sustainability, the task force, along with the Conrad N. Hilton Foundation, Second Home, Maryknoll Sisters, and other generous contributors and volunteers, have truly integrated social justice and environmental concerns in creating Pando Days. So thank you for that. And whereas Pando Days is produced by Pando Populous, all of you obviously know that, which is an environmental and social impact accelerator. And I love that term, accelerator, based here in Los Angeles, dedicated to building community resilience. And then the last part of the resolution simply says that she hereby commends Pando Days as the 3rd District Supervisor and declares it to be the 3rd District Sustainability event for 2020 because of its dedicated service to the county in creating a more resilient and hopeful future. So Eugene, you'll be getting that, unfortunately not in a board meeting, handed to you in a big ceremony, but the county will be sending that along. And again, thanks to everybody from all of the teams, really great work, and really appreciate the chance to have been able to listen in today and to see the projects and to make just a couple of remarks. So back to you, Eugene.
Thank you so much, Gary. We appreciate the opportunity to work with you to build a more resilient Los Angeles. As we bring the program to a close, let me state the obvious that Pando Days is the work of teams and teams of people who've come together to make this happen. There are way too many people to thank verbally, but as we run through a few credits, I'd like to single just a few out. Many thanks to our Pando Days judges, Kathy Schlein, Mark Eckert, Andy Schrader, Peter Lawhorn. An enormous debt of gratitude to Pando Days curator, Adam Ewens, projects producer, Betsy Hunter, launch and blitz producer, Beth Cohen, and festival producer, Shelley Goldstein. Many thanks to presentation consultant, Judith Parker, and to the Chief Sustainability Officer Task Force for LA County and its members, with whom Pando Days was conceived. Pando Days was made possible by the Conrad N. Hilton Foundation, Second Home, the Maryknoll Sisters, and many others. And yes, there will be a Pando Days 2. Watch your inbox, and we will keep you posted. Thank you so much for joining, and have a great afternoon.